This is a clip from the Cannon podcast. To hear the full episode and get access to exclusive benefits, head over to patreon.com/thecannonpod and sign up for just £3 a month.
We mentioned it in terms of Kiwior, a new position for him in the sense of playing as a left back, signed as a centre back. Alex, do you think this could be a, Bhavs 14-esque game-changing move from Mikel Arteta? In the sense of, a new position for Kiwior, playing as maybe as an inverted or his own type of left back. How can he change the game for Arsenal?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think I always point with Kiwior to the comments when Mikel signed him, when he said, he could potentially sort of revolutionise how we play. I can't remember the exact terminology. One of you might be able to correct me on that, but it was something along the lines of like, he's going to change the way, he's going to game change. He's going to change the way we play. So, yeah, I think how that looks is TBC. I was asked a question, and this might be a weird angle, but I'll come back to what we were just talking about. I was asked a question the other day about which player, I think actually, no, it was George and I were talking about it, is going to come out of our first 11, let's say that typical first 11 from last season, that sort of, Ramsdale, Zinchenko, Saliba, Gabriel, that whole 11 that never lost, basically. Who's going to leave that first? And obviously Xhaka's gone, but who next? And I think it will be Zinchenko, because I think Zinchenko is possibly, you could argue, world class at what he does in terms of being that sort of inverted fullback, in terms of stepping into midfield, in terms of with his back to play, someone who can go and roam and whatever that stuff like that. I don't think there's many left backs in the world who can do that and deliver what he does. However, when he's pulled into other zones, when he's given different jobs to do, when he's defending in the second line, I don't think that's his strength. So he's like absolutely world class at one thing, which has taken us to another level, literally. But I think there are certain things he can't do. Now, if Kiwior can develop his game, he will never give us what Zinchenko does. But I wonder whether, in terms of the role of the left back that comes inside, I wonder whether over time we might see Kiwior taking on more of that mantle, providing more defensive solidity, being able to do a lot of what Zinchenko does, perhaps seeing more of his progressive play. Because I know you can't read too much into the MLS skills games, but that was the moment, I think, when a lot of people woke up to seeing how good this kid is. And he's cold, man. Like, he is cold, this guy. Like, he's just really he just does it, and he's so technically gifted. So I think there's this idea that he's this sort of massive centre-backy guy who's just going to come in and clatter you. Actually, this could be a playmaker. We haven't seen it yet, but there's potential for that to happen. So I think one to watch in terms of our left back slot is Kiwior coming in for Zinchenko in certain games early on in the season, and over time we might go, actually, the defensive solidity he provides, considering something like 70% of the attacks against us came down our left-hand side last season. I wonder.
Mm-hmm. George, do you think this is Mikel Arteta evolving once again, and maybe with the more attack midfield of Odegaard, maybe a Havertz as well? Is Kiwior going to give us an extra defensive cover and ultimately improve our team from Zinchenko, which is a very high level?
Well, when you have a look at it, right, what was Zinchenko's role? Really, it was helping us get out of our first third, and then when he was kind of in the middle third, he would join Thomas Partey in that pivot. And then once he's there, what is he responsible for? Well, he would defend space and channels, something he wasn't great at. He would be responsible for, defending 1v1s out wide, something he's not great at. But in possession, he would help us get up the pitch. But beyond that, I wouldn't say he was somebody that got us into the final third as much. And so for me, that role is a very specific role. And it's something that, Declan Rice, for all his critics, everybody keeps telling me that he's got a left-hand bias. Well, if he's got a left-hand bias, who loses out in that role? If we've got somebody that's going to build from that deeper position, and by the way, Declan has previous experience as a center back, and so that just stepping up from the back line into midfield is something that he's very used to doing, and we all know his carries, so I just wonder, there's a certain redundancy in that zone. What is it that Kiwior offers that Zinchenko doesn't quite offer? I think it's the final third potential. And for me, I've said it kind of before, I think that, he has an ability to create separation from a standstill. So what do we mean by that is, I think Kiwior's got probably, it's going to sound weird, but the most fluid hips of our center backs. And what that kind of just means is he's able to quickly...
Sus.
But he's got kind of amazing ability to receive and to kind of play forward. And what that allows is the kind of that extra second to create separation with the ball. So when he does receive it, he's not orienting himself weird like Gabriel, even William Saliba sometimes, there's times that he needs to get it out of his feet a little bit quicker. Kiwior is really adept at that. And that's why he was used, by the way, as a DM for the entirety of the season. He was very able to kind of switch, open up play very quickly. And he's got excellent ball striking, something that I think everybody kind of awoke to with the skills challenge. And something that I kept screaming, this is a kid right now that's got incredible passing ranges, but just in general has a great technique of long ball. But also the half space cross is something that we're going to see with him develop. And so I guess what I'm getting at there is you're getting this kind of 6'2", 6'3" player that isn't going to be defensively deficient in aerial balls, which is something that Zinchenko struggled with. In terms of running and isolating, kind of defending out wide, when we did watch the Zinchenko versus Kiwior role, one thing that I noticed at least is out of possession, Kiwior would drop in, right? And it would allow a little bit more space for kind of Gabriel. And I know, Alex, you've talked about this, and we've talked about it before. It allowed for our center backs space to carry into when you had him kind of come inside. But when we saw him kind of defending, he would defend as a left back, but he would come inside and receive as a center back, which was very strange, but it gave a lot more room from our wide center back and Gabriel to carry, bring it into midfield. And I'm just thinking, not just Kiwior versus Zinchenko, but when we start to talk about the Yuri and Timber, what does that effect have on the right-hand side when we know that Ben White has a different role right now? But what would that give license for Saliba to do in terms of carrying the ball into midfield? A lot of exciting potential there. I just think that Kiwior is a very interesting player. I don't think he's a bench option. I don't think he's just there for competition. I kind of agree with Mikel. I see how he opens up different avenues of letting us play. He creates a flexibility in a way that I think only Ben White does. We don't have somebody on the left-hand side that offers that ability to both come inside but also play on the overlap. Kiwior does that. And he also packages into a really strong recovery defender, which is something we'll need, by the way, particularly on the left because of our wingers. Gabriel Martinelli will always be a diligent worker back, but he is somebody that works off the ball. So there's always going to be a little bit more space beyond us just inverting on that side, down that left channel. We're always going to need athletes down that kind of left-hand side. And I think there's always been a little bit more compactness on the right than there has been the left. When you look at Martin Odegaard, with the way that he drifts and helps him build up, it's always towards the middle third. So there's always a body there. There is much more space on the left-hand side. So I think there's a huge potential for Kiwior to kind of come in. There's things that I think he does have to learn in terms of some of the controlled aggression. You can tell he's a really nippy forward, front-footed, but there's at times you can tell that he gets a little bit too excited. It's not a worry. I think he'll develop fine there. It's just he's going to have to temper that controlled aggression a little bit more as we develop. But I really think he's going to push Gabriel next season. That was a conversation where it was a guaranteed. Gabriel was the left center back. Next season, do I see that as a guarantee? I don't know. I really think that Kiwior is going to really create that question mark because you're not going to lose the defensive solidity that you get with a Gabriel, even though for me, he's our best pure defender in the squad. One thing that you will gain, though, is that comfortability in possession that, I think is very intriguing. It really is. So, and I love the way that they interchange together, by the way. It may not even be a case of just Gabriel versus Kiwior. Them together is a really interesting prospect that I like the look of.
Mm-hmm. With that being said, Alex, we've got a lot of defensive options. You've got also Tomiyasu, you've got obviously the new signing of Yuri and Timber, Kieran Tierney still here as well. What do you think is our strongest back four then, going into this new season? Who is, if everyone's fit and available, who are you going for? Who's the four defenders? I mean, is it four centre backs? We can play four left backs, not four right backs. Who's playing?
Thanks for checking out the Cannon Podcast. To get full episodes and access to exclusive benefits, head over to patreon.com/thecannonpod and sign up for just £3 a month.